Welcome back to YHS Virtual 2020. We hope you all enjoyed your break, got a coffee and managed to relax for a bit. In this times, it's unfortunately safer to have a virtual coffee break instead of coming together, but we still hope you made the most of it. We're also incredibly sad that we won't be able to meet you all in person and have a chat face to face. So we ask you at this moment, why don't you jump on your Instagram, take a little selfie, share it with the YHS hashtag, and we might just repost you on our story as well. So we want to see you guys enjoying the virtual summit wherever you are all around the world. Guys, the biggest smile definitely wins.
Talking about smiles, our next panel concerns a topic where consistent smiles are key to its existence. Customer loyalty. This panel seeks to question the entire construct. Think about how many programs each one of you has signed up to. Are you really loyal? How can we build a sustainable and trustful future for these programs? Find out in Loyalty is Dead, Long Live Loyalty.
Our panelists will discuss the underlying issues and possibilities that arise from this construct. For this panel, we would like to firstly introduce you to our moderator and founder and CEO of HospitalityNet, Mr. Henri Roelings.
Alongside Mr. Roelings, we are proud to introduce our two other panelists, the COO and co-founder of Citizen M, Mr. Marc Levie and Mr. Marc Dardenne, the COO of Luxury Brands Europe at Accor.
A very warm welcome to you three gentlemen. May we just remind you all that during the talk, during the panel, you can of course submit your questions again on the live Q&A, and afterwards we will introduce the questions to our three speakers. Gentlemen, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And first of all, I would like to thank you for making this event happen in a virtual way. It is really nice to see that you have moved and adapted so quickly as a group of students. Really great. Good. Well, let me start off with welcoming Marc and Michael to the panel. Bienvenue, Marc.
Merci.
Where are you?
Merci, Henri.
Where are you located right now? In Zurich, in Switzerland, in Paris?
I'm grounded in Zurich. Bad place to be grounded.
Okay. Michael, where are you now?
I'm in Amsterdam, the Netherlands.
Good. So, before we start actually talking about loyalty, if I would say we are in a category 10 storm right now, which metaphor would you use for yourself to say in which situation we are right now? Michael.
Yeah, I think that nobody has ever seen something of a perfect storm get together like we're going through right now. And I think that almost entire humanity is getting a reality check and is being required, requested, forced to participate in trying to get under control a pandemic that we have not been able or have never seen before or not been able to get quickly under control. I think that every country, every organization, every individual is trying to make decisions. People have to take action. And I think that at this time, it's not about me, but it is about how we together weather through this. And we as a company are focusing a lot on making sure that obviously the safety of our teams and of our guests are in check. But in the meantime, we also need to look at the sanity check of our company itself and participate in a larger community. And as such, we participate in every country and try to follow suit as quick and as expedient as is required to keep up with the changes and to participate and be as safe as possible.
Thank you, Michael. Marc, which metaphor would you use?
Yeah, obviously I echo very much Michael's comment there. I've been 40 years in the and obviously, regional issues.
Mr. Dardenne, could we ask you to, sorry for the interruption, could we ask you to maybe speak closer to the microphone? I believe there's some slight issue with the transfer of the volume. Thank you.
Right. Can you hear me? Is that better?
That's better, yes. Thank you.
Okay, great. Good. So what I wanted to say is that really in the past we had few of those regional happenings, SARS or MERS, etc. But we have never experienced this on such global stage, you know. So I think this is something new for all of us, and I think it's not going to go away. You know, I mean, obviously, this virus will eventually go away, but we have to be conscious that you know, we have to be prepared for something like this to come back. You know, so it's really a learning curve for us. I echo also Michael's comment about the priorities, and we said health number one and families number two, and obviously work comes afterwards. You know, the number one thing is really to look after our colleagues and our guests and make sure that they are safe. Communication is absolutely key for us in the organization to make sure that we all on board, that we constantly communicate with our teams, our colleagues, our owners, corporate-wise, etc., to constantly adjust to the circumstances, which are really moving by the hour. You know, we are reforecasting, re-looking at crisis plans and so on, and it's really done by the hour, not even by the days. You know, so it is really the perfect storm. But again, I think we will survive the storm, and we will come back even stronger, I believe.
Marc, if I would ask you which would be the most drastic measure that you undertook since this crisis started within Accor, within your part of the organization, which measure would that be?
I mean, it's closing hotels, right? So we're closing hotels, because it makes more sense from a health and safety point of view, from a financial point of view for the ownerships, and that's something that we're working very closely with the owners. You can't be more drastic than closing a hotel. Now, in some jurisdictions, we are being asked by the government to close them. In some others, we take our own decisions, basically based on communication with the ownership.
Michael, how does that look for you? What was your most drastic measure?
Well, we operate a hotel in Shanghai, and obviously, as this pandemic started in Asia, we have been, seeing everything sort of happening first in Asia, in China, in Shanghai, and the effects on our hotel there. Done a lot of quick learning. And I agree with Marc, it is a day-to-day or an hour-to-hour type of thing. And what you try to do is all those learnings need to prepare you. So we have seen there the drastic scaling back of occupancy going down to zero. Decisions that need to be made, whether you keep a hotel open or not, or whether that is not even a choice, whether you keep it open. And of course, what are the type of safety measures? And we early on have seen what it is that we need to do in order to protect our employees and our guests. And all those measures we have been able already a couple of weeks ago to preempt and prepare for in our hotels in Europe and the US. So sort of we were ahead of the curve when it comes to that. But there's so many new eventualities constantly happening that you need to adjust to also what happens with your local government. So when it is, whether there's restrictions on bars and restaurants, what effect has that on your hotel? Can you still operate a restaurant in your hotel, or does it need to become room service or pickup only? What happens if certain cities go to curfews? How can you still get your teams in, yes or no? So there's so many variables that change from hour to hour, and we adapt and we try to preempt as much as possible, with always first safety, and second, of course, we need to understand also what's the impact on our organizations, because this is right now first action, but of course there will be a reaction as well, and there will be huge financial consequences that we need to understand as well.
So did you have to close any of your hotels?
So far, we have not.
Okay. So again, before we enter the topic of loyalty, this is too much. This is too interesting not to talk about this crisis. If you talk about protecting staff and associates in a hotel, what would be the top three things that you learned, Michael, in dealing with this crisis in China and other places?
So the number one thing we have done is that obviously sanitation and the work that can be done to the maximum possible protect is the mask sanitation. We have been taking temperature of our teams several times during shifts. In some locations, government requires that we take temperature of guests checking in. We have gone to measures whereby all services whereby germs or possible infection could take place, mostly touchscreens, elevator buttons, you name it. We have been covering those with plastic wrap and being able to change those every 15 minutes to half an hour. We obviously keep distance. We have rescheduled everybody so that we have teams that are on shifts that are scheduled on the same shift. So there's not floaters that can cross-contaminate different shifts. And we have gone to keeping teams paid home that alternate with the ones in the hotel so that we have as much redundancy as possible. From a guest point of view, you communicate as much as possible. So on arrival, we have very clear signage that we ask our guests to participate in safety. We would like to know where they're from, if there's any issues, how to get a hold of us, how to react. We obviously have gone to portioned food everywhere instead of being able to have open food available on buffets or other type of offerings. So you adapt as much as possible to what it is that you have under control. And then there is a very important component where I think you want to appeal to individuals to be participating, flexible, and take this extremely serious, because it takes one to not follow suit and to create a lot of trouble for others.
Michael, Marc, talking about protecting associates and employees, how difficult does that get in dealing with so many brands in your organization and the volume of the sheer number of hotels? Can you share some of your experience?
I think obviously we are a global company. Clearly it brings, and with the size of the company with 5,000 hotels in the world, it becomes more complicated, but we have excellent communication systems in place, which makes it work basically. It's obviously challenging because you take Switzerland, for example, every canton has different regulations. We're talking not even countries. So the regulations are so different that we have to really rely on the business leaders, our regional VPs, on the finally the GMs, to do the right thing under the right guidance, obviously. So, and I think they're doing a fantastic job at that. Maybe to the comments that Mike brought up, obviously I echo all of them. I just want to add, one or two. One is education. Very important to go through an education phase with our colleagues for them to really truly understand how they can make a difference and how important it is. So that's an important aspect. The second aspect is that we took very, very early a decision to basically all our to close all our corporate offices and really work from home by remote and stop any travel at all. And we took that decision already 10 days ago, so very ahead of the curve. And I think that was an important decision that we took.
Thank you, Marc. I'm getting a request from the YHS team to move now into the topic of loyalty. So,
Yeah.
but thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on this current situation. But hooking into loyalty, what do you think might be the actual link between the topic of loyalty and what we are experiencing now? Michael, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think loyalty sits in general with having a relationship or having affinity with something you do, you like, you are loyal to. And as it deals with hotel brands, I think there are many brands, but I often question how much there is loyalty or how much it is the loyalty program that brings on that loyalty. The end result might be the same, that people will come back to your establishment. One being in loyalty, that often this happens through a point and tier type of process whereby people can redeem or earn and redeem things. Where what we have seen is that when it comes to true loyalty, there is the relationship and the recognition component that is very important. And maybe that today recognition, and to a certain extent recognition also being visualized or being actually offered to a guest in many different other ways than point and tiers, are possibilities for our industry to look at. There are also, again, a next type of way loyalty has been created. If we see and look at subscription, and Amazon or others have gone away from maybe loyalty point and tiers, and they've said you can buy through subscription certain benefits and loyalty with me and a relationship. So I think that loyalty as we knew it is maybe not dead, and long live loyalty, I agree, because loyalty remains and will always be a very important factor to a relationship people have with it. How that is done, our first reaction being point and tier maybe is switching and changing to recognition programs, to subscription programs, and other variations of that kind.
Marc, so Accor is pretty much with its new loyalty program into points and tiers, as Michael just mentioned. So how would you, for yourself, define success of a loyalty platform that you have within your organization?
I mean, first of all, it's clear that we are fully convinced that loyalty programs are needed. And I'm talking for an organization like Accor with a global presence, that many hotels, and so on. In last year, in November, we launched our new loyalty program, invested $200 million into the program. It's a huge commitment. It's not a commitment that we have done just overnight. We did a lot of research, obviously, and took to that decision. So I think that's point, obviously, number one. When we look at our loyalty program, we were actually behind our main competitors, and we somehow could learn from them and really leapfrog in terms of program offerings. And you're talking points and tiers. Yes, we have points and tiers, but really the two key points is that number one, our most loyal customers, most loyal old customers give us upwards of 70% of our revenues. So loyal customer spend more money with you, spend more time with you. That's the statement. The second statement is obviously data, understanding our customers. We can communicate meaningfully with our customers. We can target our customers with meaningful offers that make a difference to them. And that's actually one of the second key points. The third point is, and I agree again with Michael there, that recognition is the key to the success to the loyalty program. The loyalty program is not just showing your card and getting points. It's the whole recognition that you would get with being recognized as a member, being recognized as a premium member, and obviously us understanding preferences and your needs, the needs of our customers, and obviously delivering on those and even exceeding on those. When you look at our program, for example, for our top premium customers, we're offering experiences that you can't buy. So that would mean flying on a private jet with Neymar or Mbappe to see a football game, not nowadays, but like that was a few months ago, to join them on a plane and watch a game, as an example. To go to Roland Garros and go into the changing rooms and maybe meet Roger Federer. Have a private dinner with somebody special at the Louvre, and so on. So we're really selling, going to experiences versus just transaction. We're going from a transactional program to an experience-led program.
So, Marc, did I correctly understand that 70% of your current business is generated through the loyalty system?
No, I said that 70% of our loyal customers provide give us 70% of our revenues. So okay. What I want to say is that the loyal customers spend more with you and obviously stay more with you and provide you more revenues.
And obviously, the direct booking element of this is important as well.
Yeah,
Michael, how do you work on this topic of integrating the direct booking with loyalty in all of your communication with guests?
Well, before I answer that, Henri, I think that Marc mentioned something that I believe our industry has not fully grasped what that really is and what it really means, and that is data. How do you get to data and how your systems are linked up to provide you with the purity of data so that you can communicate with those that frequent your hotels and are loyal. So most organizations, because their systems are not tight in the back together, have the requirement to do that through the loyalty card and the recognition program itself, and with that get a lot of information. Not all, but many. And I think that only a very few have sufficient grip over the customer profile and allowing all systems to fill that customer profile and the guest send central versus our property management systems that are very room centric. So everything in the property management system attaches to the room, where the rest of the world, gathers everything around the customer. And so the architecture needed, the connectivity needed to get clear and clean data to make sure that we communicate with the person we want to communicate with is highly underrated, and people do not understand what it takes in order to get to a high level. So give you an example. If you would only have 40 or 50% certainty over, do I really talk to Mr. Roelings? Is it Mr. Henri or H. Roelings, or whatever way you might show up in systems, and I might not confuse you with somebody else, the level of comfort in talking to you and offering you or working on recognition with you obviously is different than if I know by 99% security that I have the right individual in front of me. And data and the connectivity behind that needs to provide us that. And our industry is not very good at that. So there are companies that are better at it, but in general, our industry is lagging behind. Now, imagine you would have solved that data problem, and you would have very clean data that you communicate with your guest. Then I think that the relationship you build up and the communication becomes much easier, because now you know what the lifetime value of an individual is. And you can start determining, is lifetime value more important to me, or is that in combination with frequency of stay, or if that in combination with your last stay? And you can start to build hurdles as to how you talk to different levels of customer loyalty and usage of your hotels in the system. And obviously that's for everybody different, but I think that not sufficient people understand the level of sophistication that you need to have in that before you can start making choices and programs for that. And obviously, Citizen and Accor are to be compared because we're both hotels. One is an incredible, gigantic company with many, many hotels, and we're, you know, beyond the startup phase, but we're still a very modest, small company. But if you look about the sophistication and loyalty and the connect that you want to have with your frequent customers, data is the same, and the amount of choices that you need to make in how you want to communicate with your guests becomes very important.
Thank you, Michael.
I just want to add one thing here. It's you know, size matters. I work for smaller luxury companies, and I remember being in yearly meetings where we talked, should we go in a loyalty program? Shouldn't we do it? Is recognition better than loyalty? And it came to the fact that we just couldn't afford it. We couldn't afford the investment into a loyalty program. And that's when we focused really all our efforts on recognition. I mean, central recognition from the hotels, knowing who your return customers are, their preferences, and so on. And size absolutely matters, because when you learn you know, how much we invested into a loyalty program, you know, you ask Marriott or you ask the other big players, and it'll be in the same numbers or maybe double or triple. So I think that's one statement. The second statement also, when we talk to potential owners, you know, first question is brands, second question is loyalty, and third question would be fees. They want to understand what kind of loyalty program you provide, what kind of support you give, how much contribution through the loyalty program comes through their hotels. It's the second question an owner would ask. So, so for me, again, size matters. Smaller groups might be better off really focusing on a different program, on a recognition program versus a loyalty program.
Marc, from that perspective, it's also interesting to mention that Accor recently announced a joint venture with Sabre to develop a new platform, basically combining a CRS with a new generation PMS platform, which obviously would tie into your loyalty platform. I think that has a lot of potential, and many people are looking forward to see how that partnership will develop in the future. But yeah, coming back to you know, having invested 200 million, Marc, in this new platform, I'm still curious to know how you actually measure success in this operation. In a hotel, we talk about RevPAR, for example, as a measurement of success. How do you measure success after having invested 200 million in a loyalty platform?
Obviously, it's increase of loyalty members, increase of revenue generated by these members through the program, a decrease of commission payments, obviously, to OTAs, and in channeling more bookings through our own reservation system and through our loyalty program. These are the matrices, the KPIs that we are using to really measure success, because any investment would obviously, somebody will ask for what's the return on that investment. Not that we say we must have it because the other, our competitors have it also. It's definitely a reason also, but it's definitely a return on investment in what we're doing.
Michael, on your
Henri,
end,
if I may,
go ahead.
yeah, if I may add to that, I think that very important and maybe not directly involved in this loyalty discussion, but is how do we today look at our business? Traditionally, it's said in segmentation. We had corporate business, we had group business, we had volume business. You have your leisure business on top of that. Today, we look at channels. And I think that if you start looking at channels and which channels produce what, because it is very important to understand your growth rates, your distribution costs, and then ultimately your net rate, to start to understand what contributes and how does loyalty play into that. And do I offer the same to anybody, or do my loyal customers get a different preferential treatment? So am I channel agnostic, or how do I work with that? So the complexity today is not anymore only a relationship or having the data to be able to have that relationship with your guest, but it is also what can we afford? And that's not program by program, but I think that is gross revenue, your total distribution cost. And if you want to do that well, you need to lump everything in that and then see what your net revenue is, because then only you can see what your contribution to profit is. And I think
So, Michael,
that is, yeah.
If you are making that calculation, it's obviously relatively simple to know how much you're paying to Booking.com and Expedia. But all the other costs, how do you calculate that?
No, I think it's even difficult to do Booking.com and Expedia, because we have a variety of contracts in different regions, and you're able to sign up to different programs. So even there is different levels of commissions. And I think that if we're not clear on where our distribution cost comes from or what we're spending on it, then that in relationship to the volume and the average rates that we're able to generate from them. So it might be very beneficial for me to spend a very high percentage on acquiring or distribution costs for a particular channel if the revenues, the ADRs, are extremely high. So I think we need to switch away from is your overall commission or your overall distribution cost a particular number? You need to understand much more. And if you do not have systems that accurately on the fly can track that and have that in dashboarding, and our demand systems are not capable of dealing with that, it humanly on scale, it becomes impossible, even with a few hotels.
Okay.
I just want to again add here, and I mentioned it before, is the average spend loyal customer versus, I call them, non-loyal customers. And like I mentioned earlier, loyal customers spend more money with you. They use your restaurants, they use your spa, and sometimes we're too focused on rooms. Obviously, rooms, that's where the money is, we all know that. But it's really the overall spend, especially in luxury hotels, where you have all these amenities. You have these restaurants, you have the spa, you have golf courses, and so on. So you really want to find a customer that stays with you, but also spends the most money with you. And that's a very important aspect, I think.
Thank you, Marc. So at this stage, I would like to give the mic back to the YHS team, who is gathering a variety of questions on the topic of loyalty. So can I hand it over to you?
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption. We'll move on to a lot of questions that we have received. So if you don't mind, I'll jump into the first one straight away. This comes from Parin Parik, and I'll focus this on you, Mr. Roelings. So there's a heavy focus on guest loyalty. However, what about employee loyalty? The hospitality industry is known for its high turnover, but there seems to be not enough focus on employee loyalty within the organization. How would you tackle this?
I think that's a very good question for Michael.
Well,
can I switch that to Michael? Sorry for that. Sorry.
Well, I think that employee satisfaction indeed is as important as is your guest satisfaction. And I think that we have been spoiled over the last years with the third-party content that is left and gives us a very good and in-depth reach into the guest satisfaction. And we even have guest review index. We have great systems for that give you general information. You can compare one to the other, and you can even go into semantics and really understand what drives and what are the issues in the satisfaction of guests and their topics. For employees, that is not so obvious. And with employees, once a year we ask them if they're happy, and if we get a thumbs up, we think we're doing great, but we do not have enough depth in that, and it is more difficult to get true quantitative information on that. How most organizations do it right now, in my belief, is on culture. What type of culture, what type of values live within their organizations, and how many people can they get behind that? And I'm always amazed that the ownership and leadership of organizations that truly have value and care and a culture in place find a tremendous following, and they almost look like, why are you asking me in the first place what the employee satisfaction is? Whereas some other companies need to know that from a system or through volume questions, because they're concerned about it and really don't know.
Thank you very much for this. Thank you. To move on to the next question, this one's... Yeah,
can I just, sorry, I just want to add also something. Can I add something to that topic? Because it's very close to my heart.
Definitely.
Two things. One is, number one, in the luxury segment, obviously, not any segment really, but for us, like Michael said, key to have the right people in the right place in the organization. And for us, it starts all with the selection process and to see if there's a good fit between the individual and the culture of the company. If there's a good fit, number one. And we put a lot of efforts into finding that right fit. And so that's step number one. Step number two is obviously a great orientation. Step number three, obviously giving the tools to the individual to perform to its best. And I also agree with Michael, once a year survey is what we normally do, but we have upped that and we have introduced systems where we do spot surveys, so we would do in between month by month surveys within the organization, let's say in stewarding or in the kitchen, etc., or for a specific topic. So we constantly query, constantly ask our colleagues, their opinion and feedback and so on. And that really helps really with, number one, the retention of our colleagues, their satisfaction, and then becoming ambassadors to the brand, so absolutely crucial. And I always say, it doesn't matter if you run a 5, 4, 3-star lifestyle hotel, at the end of the day, is to have the right people in the organization is the key to your success.
So you talk a lot about finding the right people in the first place, but now in these tough times where I guess layoffs are increasing, what would you say are measures to be taken to really make sure employee retention stays high as it should be in your company?
Is that addressed to whom?
That would be to you, Mr. Dardenne, or anyone who's...
Okay, yeah, no, sure. I can start with it. One of the things that, we're trying to understand or change is, the way we recruit. We are very old-fashioned. Our business has not changed. And talking about distribution, we're always behind the 8 ball. In terms of recruitment, we're trying to recruit young people, but we're using old methods. So we have to really review the way we approach, the way we recruit, the way we promote, the way we also look at candidates. I remember working for Ritz-Carlton 20 years ago, and the dress code with Ritz-Carlton was about 10 pages. You know, we would describe to our colleagues exactly what they could say, what they couldn't say, what they could wear, they couldn't wear, the earrings, no earrings, and so on. And if you have these kind of restrictions nowadays, you will never be able to find anybody. So it's really changing, and also what kind of media do we use to recruit, and so on. So number one is really attracting. The second one is obviously retention, and the retention is all about communication and letting really the colleagues contribute to the day-to-day success of the company, and really including them into the process. Years ago, I remember, running hotels, working for old-fashioned general managers. Everything was very directive. And nowadays, you have to change the way you operate with the new generation to be able to retain them and making sure they're very happy.
Certainly.
My 2 cents worth in this is that I believe that our industry, by and large, is a top-down industry. So we're a traditional hierarchy where we have a pyramid hierarchy with, the CEO and the VPs and all the way down to the line staff. And I see that a lot of contemporary companies, whether that is in the tech or other, that are extremely successful are way more of an empowered nature. And I think that empowered organizations have a different type of philosophy and are able to attract a different kind of employee. We are an extremely empowered organization where our line staff, so the ambassadors, we call them, that are on the floor representing our entire company to the guest, are actually end responsible, and the rest of the organization supports up to them. So we don't even have headquarters because those have usually very important people and very wise people. We don't have them. We have support offices where we support. And I think that ultimately in an empowered organization, there are 3 things that are important, and the rest is semantics. The first thing is people want to contribute. People want to really belong to an organization and contribute. The sense of belonging and being recognized for that contribution then becomes important. So belonging, being able to contribute, and being recognized for that contribution. Salary, the rest, it's all semantics. It's less important. So I think that we as organizations are shifting. We don't do interviews. We have a different process for it, but I won't reveal that.
Yes, so we'll move on to the next question. This will be so Ms. Mendy-Rata informed us that the tourism and travel industry will be shifted back to a moment where it's going to be possible to lift up again. But in what way do you think that in the current environment, hospitality companies can still find the process to connect through loyalty and really add value to upcoming experiences or experiences of the future? So how can they act in these times where hospitality may see a downturn, but really to ensure that the future really stays within loyalty?
Maybe I can take a stab at it. Number one, I think and the history has shown that hospitality generally gets hurt the most in times of crisis like we have today, attacks or scares and so on, but then bounces back very quickly. I think that we will bounce back very quickly. I think our industry is incredibly in an incredible growth rate and will continue to grow. And obviously, whilst the business is picking back up, the question is who's going to be the best prepared for? So one of the comments we have and one of the time we take now is really to think of when business comes back, what are we doing? How do we approach again our loyal customers? How do we communicate with them, and so on? So one thing is to take care of the crisis now, but already have one eye to see when we're going to pick up, which is going to happen.
Certainly. I believe, Mr. Roelings, you now have a question for the 2 gentlemen.
Well, I have a final question. If there are any further
Yes.
questions, then please go ahead and
No,
ask
I think
those.
we can conclude here.
Okay. So thank you, Marc. Thank you, Michael. Before we end this session, which words of comfort would you have for all of these people working in our hospitality industry?
You know, I think the future might look not very bright now, but I am an optimist by nature, and I truly think we are an incredible business. You know, it's expanding globally, incredible opportunities. Travel will continue, different travels, different classes of travel, and so on. You know, so we're in a great industry. Obviously, we have to go through these difficult times. And one of the key things we have to do is really care for our colleagues, because some of them are really in extremely difficult situations. You know, so it's looking at business coming back and be ready for that. But I think our business is a very blessed economy, in a very, very blessed business that will only go from strength to strength.
Thank you, Marc. Michael.
So I think that this is the Young Hoteliers Summit, and I want to address my thoughts a little bit to those that still need to start their careers in the industry. And I believe that in these times of trouble, you see that companies and organizations respond quite differently. And I think that it starts with true care and partnerships. And in our case, we believe that the relationship we build up and the responsibilities that carries, we want to extend safety and continued employment as much as we can, and are making sure that the economic impact of this virus or any catastrophe is minimized to the individual. And that can be done by participating. So we feel that everybody that can or should contribute in that process should, and it should not fall the burden on one shoulder, but on many shoulders. And that in this case, we try to, instead of globally grab it, bring it back again to individual basis. We as individuals, as human beings, are collectively capable of a lot, but by ourselves, it is a little bit more difficult. So let's start with ourselves, how we can contribute, and by volume, have the right attitude and sticking together, and by having that energy being focused, being able to move the needle maybe on a slightly bigger scale, and the partnership and the loyalty to each other, I think, stand central. So I hope that the young hoteliers look a lot at the culture and the capacity of organizations and how values fit with their values, and only join organizations whereby they never have to think as what to do, because their values match and they know what to do. And ultimately, my call out to everybody is, in this time of crisis, it's not about your position of what you are contributing. It is that you contribute whatever you can in these circumstances. And when we all add it up, we hope we can survive this and bounce back as fast as possible. As also Marc suggests, we will bounce back. We will bounce back faster and stronger, but it is through sticking together shoulder to shoulder. So that would be my advice.
Thank you very much.
Marc and Michael, thank you very much for these inspiring words. I give the mic back to the YHS team.
Thank
Gentlemen,
you,
thank
Henri.
you really all for these insights and sharing your thoughts with us. I'm sure all of us will take this to heart and live off of them in the future. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a very good afternoon wherever you are in the world.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Okay.
At this stage, I would like to thank you all again for joining us at this virtual summit. Sorry if not all your questions were taken. Unfortunately, we had to move on with the questions we had, and as many of you hopefully were answered. We've just spoken to our core team, and they have told us that they're almost more than 200 really of you watching right now from all around the world. So a special thank you to all of you. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts as well on the summit with us. We've seen many interactions on our Instagram, our LinkedIn, on our Facebook as well, and we truly treasure your feedback.
Oh wow, Chris, this afternoon is flying by so quickly. We now move on to our unfortunately final yet possibly the most thought-provoking panel of the day. Our next panel discusses issues that some of us have or will encounter throughout our careers. Every day, people in our industry face challenges that arise from a myriad of factors, such as their gender, race, and learning capabilities. The question is, how can companies and employers learn to influence a culture to be more empowering and inclusive?
How can we achieve an organic culture that does not just arise from a variety of diverse hires and programs?
What are companies actually doing to ensure their female workplace has the same opportunities to reach an executive position?
Our next panel is titled Men plus Women equals Diversity. We're going to take a short break just now while we wire up our new speakers. So go back, relax, take a quick coffee, and we'll see you in a second. Thank you very much.